Hey everybody, welcome to the Uninformed Banker. My name's Gerald, and today we have Suraj, correct?
Suraj, yeah.
Suraj. And he has a very, very interesting life story to tell you. He's not taken the normal path, and I found it very interesting. So, Suraj, how are you?
I'm doing well, Gerald. How are you?
Doing okay. It's a little
Uh,
hot here, but other than that,
the weather's pretty good here. I had a flight lesson though; it got canceled. Unfortunately, not. Usually, it's because of clouds that our flight lessons get canceled. But today it was just my instructor's child got sick, so
okay.
kind of
So
unusual.
I'm going to stop you there because I knew you were into climbing,
Yeah.
which I recently started dabbling in, but I did not know about the aviation. So you just blindsided me.
Whoops.
Now you're flying around. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I joke with my friends that I've got like at least 32 different hobbies, and I forget, I lose track of them. But yeah, I'm getting my pilot's license right now, so I just finished my MBA. I've got a little bit of time before I start working, and so I figured, I want to use this time meaningfully. And initially, the plan was I was going to go to Japan or Australia, spend some time there. I love culture and just like getting to know different places, and rather than spending 10 days in a place, if you can go spend 2 months, you can actually get to know the place. But obviously with the flu that's going around
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
past
Yeah.
year, I that got canceled. So I figured I'd just learn to fly, and we'll see
That way,
what
when they
happens from
stop
there.
all flights, you can go, I got my own plane. Fly
Yeah,
out.
exactly. Yeah.
All right. That's awesome. So
Thanks.
even more interesting than okay. I agree with you about traveling. I did want to travel because I was set to graduate the year, like my last semester was Corona semester.
Mhm.
So that there when I was looking at going to Australia for like a week with a buddy of mine
Yeah.
just to like see it. That's one place I've always wanted to go. I loved London when I went.
Yeah.
And you're right. I would love to spend like 2 months or something at a place that, you get to know someone, some of the locals, and you actually get to see like the parts that, okay, this is Australia. And then there's the Australia that we don't show the tourists. That's
Mhm.
really fun,
Yeah.
although
Yeah.
everything wants to kill you there. So,
That's fair. I was gonna say, I feel like once you get to a place and you're navigating without GPS, like that's a good feeling. That's when you're like, okay, I know this place. But Australia, you might not want to wander too much.
yeah,
You might end up in the wrong.
I've seen like pictures because I played rugby with a guy that ended up going out there and he sent me pictures of like fields just like apparently spiders blow in. I didn't know that was a thing, but they
Oh
literally
yeah,
blow in there.
like on the
And
wind, like they
yeah,
just get. Oh wow.
and then they like will cover like a field. I'm like that sounds like hell. You
It
just
sounds
described
made
hell.
up. It literally sounds made up. I don't think you could even. Yeah, there's a meme way back. If you Google like drop bears, it's pretty funny. It was like
Mhm.
basically someone photoshopped koalas so they had like really sharp teeth and stuff, and it was just
Ooh.
like making fun of the animals in Australia. But yeah, it's a crazy place. Although I've heard like the vibe is super chill. So the reason I'm super intrigued by Japan and Australia, Japan, I feel like it's just a very different place from the US, right? And just
Mhm.
complete, it's like a 180. The everything there is just completely different. And I'm also like very into technology and big cities, so Tokyo is very good for that. Like you mentioned, I love climbing, and Japanese climbers, they are incredible. I don't know why or like what they're doing,
Time out.
but
I want to stop
yeah,
you there because
yeah.
climbers themselves, at least some of them that I've seen, they're incredible because like I'm having trouble with like what they call a beginner. I'm like, all right, I got this. And then I
Yeah.
see some guy that's like, he's got like his fingers like three fingers, and he's like, I'm just gonna pull myself up with one hand. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Dude, at that point, see, the thing is, like, I've noticed with the good climbers, like, they don't grip anything. At that point, they're just using friction. That's literally all it is.
I don't need
But
hands, I just got friction.
yeah. But the US
Oh,
champions, I think they're like 3 days on, 2 days off, or something like that. Like the US team, like that's how they train. And
oh,
from what I've heard, the Japanese team, it's like 4 days on, one day off, and they're back at it. It's like really, really
Jesus.
crazy. So I think it would be cool to like go train for a couple of days there. You'd probably come back like a couple of grades higher.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I've also wanted to go to I think it's Norway. I saw so this was a documentary about he's like a kid and one of the
Mhm.
best climbers in the world. I can't remember his name. He's either in like Norway or Iceland, and he's like 15, like no ropes, just I'm gonna climb this face. And like looking down, I'm going, I wouldn't do that with ropes. No.
Yeah, right. Yeah, legit. Yeah, man, kids are just crazy, and it's weird because as new things like hangboards and just whatever new training devices have been invented, better knowledge around nutrition, like
Mhm.
the age that you have to start to become like a
Oh,
world champion climber, it's just dropping steadily. Yeah.
mhm.
So
Yeah, if you're not hanging with the adults by the time you're like 9, then you're not going to be a world champion or something. Like
exactly.
that's
I was in a gym in Kansas City, and this guy literally had his baby like on his arm, and he was just putting the baby's hands onto holds. And it's funny because babies can do two things, right? They can cry and they can grip. And this guy was like, "Well, it can grip." So
I mean, he's got a point.
yeah, yeah.
Got to give it to him.
That baby's gonna be a really good climber someday.
It's either that or he's going to hate it.
That's true.
It's either one or the other. Total
Yeah.
360. Like, oh my God, I love it. I'm the best. Or no, I will never climb. He's just going to be like the best, I don't know, flyer, aviation
Yeah.
pilot. That's the word.
It's gonna just completely 180. I guess if you can't climb your way to the skies, you can fly your way through. I don't know. I'm trying to draw parallels. I'm trying to figure out why I have all these hobbies too as we're speaking. But yeah, man, I think we've both taken non-traditional paths, and I just like to explore different things, right? You probably noticed like when even if you just spend like 20 hours getting to know something, like you probably know what the word send, and like as you just enter these different worlds, you start to understand new things and see things differently. Like if I were to get into a plane right now, I have a completely different vision around what's happening around me, why the plane is going up at a certain angle, and all these different. And I haven't even gotten my license yet, right? But it's just the fact that I've entered this
Mhm.
just gives you new vision, new eyes.
See, I like to like just spend a little bit of time like just get my feet wet in something, and
Mhm.
then the ADD kicks in, and I'm like, oh, what's over here? And I go look at something new. So like it's fun for me because I get like a sampling of everything. And but I will admit this, I never really get to the point where I'm like, all right, I'm an expert. And I'm okay with that because it's just I do there are a few things that I have taken into like kept going with that I really
Yeah.
enjoy.
Yeah.
Investing is actually like a hobby of mine, and I do that. I actually do maple sugaring. So that's a
So
really sick hobby.
you
Uh,
produce your own.
yep.
Oh wow. I used to live in Canada, so I have an appreciation.
We I think last year was our 50th year, and we walk out in the woods and drill holes in trees and spend a while watching it boil down. Really
Yeah.
messed up hobby, but it is fun. So there's that. There's investing. I started getting into climbing recently. I've been focused on work for a while. Podcasting has been a new hobby of mine that I do enjoy. It ended up being like I'd talk about investments or just market news or something all the time. And literally, my buddy would be like, "We're not talking about money today." And I'm like, "Oh, maybe I talk about it too much. Maybe I'll put it on the internet, and then people can either decide to listen to it or not." And
Yeah.
now my friends go, "Oh, just go tell it on your podcast."
Yeah, it's funny. Once you start podcasting, I think everything just turns into, man, like I should have recorded this conversation. It's the thing that happens. Do you find that you circle back to your hobbies a lot? I feel like I have a different thing at the forefront always. And so, right now climbing has kind of subsided, but piloting is up. But eventually that'll probably switch. Or do you find that you just continue moving to the next?
I definitely have like the last couple of months have been really hard on podcasting just
Mhm.
because it's like you get that inflow of information, plus it's like that dopamine hit when you get like, oh, someone watched it.
Yeah.
I got one subscriber, nice.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And so I know that's part of the reason why, but the other thing is I'm getting to talk to like interesting people like yourself. I got to talk to a friend I hadn't seen in over a decade,
Mhm.
who like last time I saw him, we were both at UMass Lowell, and the next time I saw him, he's now directing like the F-35 program in England.
That's John.
And yep,
Yeah.
yeah, really good to see him again. I was going to talk to someone. I didn't know that Miatas were a hobby, like just the car Miata.
Yeah.
He unfortunately had to cancel a previous professor of mine,
Yeah.
but like his hobby is like Miatas. Like there's like groups. It's like a cult car apparently, and I'm like,
Hmm.
what? Did not know that that was a thing. Like you go, oh, my hobby's climbing. I'm like, yeah, I know that's a thing.
Yeah.
You go, my hobby is Miatas. I go, oh, so you're like cars? No, Miatas. Okay. I did not know that was like had a cult following,
Yeah. That's
and they
cool.
break them up by like years and like, oh, this color's rare.
Hmm.
And like, yeah, apparently they have like, I don't know, 60 people in our town in like one group, but like they have international Miata conventions.
Wait, there's 60 people in one town that are
Yes.
dedicated to. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
this
That's
thing is
why I
bigger
was
than I
like,
thought. Yeah.
that's what I said. They're like, yeah, we have national conventions. I'm like, number one, that's got to be weird if you don't know it's there because you just drive by like a parking lot and there's
It's
thousands of
all one.
Miatas. What's going on there?
Yeah.
And yeah, no, apparently it's like a big thing. Well, granted, my town is a small city. Not going to tell where in case like the three people that listen want to track me down. But yeah, in Central Mass, it's a small city, but I couldn't believe there were that many people in that small of an area. I
Yeah.
thought it was going to be like, yeah, there's like five of us or something. No,
Yeah.
they have to like rent out a building every winter, and he had to cancel for an unrelated reason, and he just got too busy. And
Mm.
but that's one thing that drew me to it was, and that's also why I chose the name because I'd talk a lot, and then people would be like, "Are you sure you know what you're talking about?" I'm like, "No, sometimes I just watch it come out of my mouth." And so I named myself the Uninformed Banker because I don't know what I'm doing. And I fell into banking by accident and ended up loving it. And I just want to learn. Like I love the new thing that today, the new thing the next day. That's why I do little bits on the news because it's always new.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so before I sidetrack you again, because I don't know how many times I've sidetracked you from one sidetrack,
You could.
let's start with your story.
Yeah. So my family is of Indian descent, and I bring that up because I feel like a lot of my early childhood, we'll say, is kind of the typical South Asian immigrant story, right? I grew up in Canada and the US and had moved around a lot. So, like, to give you some context, I was born in Saudi Arabia because my dad happened to be working there at the time. Don't remember it at all, but probably a few months in India, still don't quite remember that. But then Toronto, Detroit, Dallas, Kansas City. I forget if I've mentioned that one in there. Like I moved a lot
I can
as
tell.
as a kid. So I did high school and college in Wisconsin though. That's when things started to kind of stabilize. But it's so weird to me because I speak to some of my high school friends. And yeah, I've known that person since elementary school, and my like we didn't have Facebook until like high school ish, or that whole time. So I don't even know where the people that I went to elementary school with are living now. But yeah, so I moved around a lot. And I think like when I was younger, I kind of did take a more typical path. So it's funny that you mentioned that we both have atypical paths because I think if you had met me probably till the end of college, I was pretty much in the med school, like going the med school track, very stable path, biochem major, took the MCAT, 150 plus hours of shadowing, including a few abroad. And I think a lot of people, when you talk to like immigrants, there's a stereotype of like, my parents are making this. And that was not the case for me, but I think it was more just that I never really paused, look at other things, right? You mentioned that you'd worked, I think, in the lumber business doing
Yeah.
logging.
Yeah.
And when you're a kid, like no one really tells you that these types of things are out there, right? Everyone is like doctor, teacher, engineer. There's like five jobs that
Yeah.
no one tells you you can be a consultant or a podcaster. I mean,
Yeah.
podcasting wasn't even a thing back then.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They're like, I want to be an army soldier. I want to be an astronaut, a
Yeah.
fighter pilot, or a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, or like that.
Yeah, yeah, like all the standard stuff.
Yeah.
But so as I was leaving undergrad, I basically decided like, hey, I want to go try some other stuff. My MCAT score is good for a couple of years. So when I left, it wasn't like, hey, I'm done with medicine. It was more like medicine's a 10-year path. Let me go try some other stuff, see what happens. Uh, so I worked in healthcare for a bit. It was on the business side, just an easy transition. That was
Mhm.
kind of like the more boring phase of my life. And then transitioned to nonprofits. So I worked with kids for a little bit, kind of uh,
Mhm.
first grade through sixth grade, helping them get like access to free tutoring in Chicago. And
Mhm.
then I went to business school. So I'm kind of giving you the back to back to show you the massive like transitions
Mhm.
in between. But post business school, I'm going into mergers and acquisitions consulting. So I get a lot
Nice.
of shit from my friends like, hey, you were just working with kids, like helping them get access to education. Now you're going to doing this like corporate thing, but it's interesting work. And I'm just like, I don't know. I think one of the things that I've really realized over the last few years is my definition of what my career is and what my impact is has really expanded beyond my day job, which is why I
Mhm.
have my podcast, those types of
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, it's funny you brought up the mergers and acquisitions and how like people view it as like, oh, it's just such a corporate this and that. And because I'm in private equity, where we kind of do that, not exactly a merger, but we do acquire.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons I love it is because I think we have 30 different like sectors, like everything from restoring vision to the blind to DOD, like Department of Defense stuff. So it's like two to agriculture drones and just all these different like areas. And the fact that I can like even see that stuff, I go, oh, this is awesome. There's always something new here. And that's why I personally like it.
Yeah.
And you also feel like you're getting to make someone else's dreams come true and you're helping. And that's why I really enjoyed it the moment that I fell into it.
Yeah,
And
sorry. I feel like the corporate world gets like a bad rap, and this is a conversation that I've talked to a lot of friends about, where they're like, business is this like big, really shitty thing. It's ruining the world and
yeah.
stuff. And I will, you know what? I will admit that in its current manifestation, I'm not sure I disagree with them. But my thing
Mhm.
is, if you get good leaders into the right positions that aren't simply focused on profit, or
Mhm.
at least they have boundaries around what they're willing to do for
Yeah, it's
profit.
like
I
draw a line in the sand.
Yeah.
We'll go
Like
for
the
profit, but we're not doing that. Stop it.
right,
Yeah.
right. So one line that we've drawn in the past is around like child labor, right?
Mhm.
And so I think like we have to continue drawing those.
Mhm.
But eventually business becomes this tool that you can for positive change. And this is actually one of the reasons why I feel like the government is just really inefficient and falling behind, because like there was, I think, Kraft, one of the CEOs for Kraft, they said, you know what, we tried to like reduce prices on healthy food, something. They tried some sort of experiment where they're trying to put healthier food,
Mhm.
and they were just getting slaughtered by the competition because there's no boundaries, right? Like they can
Yeah.
continue price cutting and all these things. And so if government draws the boundaries for technology companies in terms of what privacy is allowed,
Mhm.
like a lot of these businesses are willing to do make concessions, like put out healthier food, give
Mhm.
customers more privacy. It's just that in the current market,
Yeah,
with
it's
the
like
boundaries that they exist, they can't compete.
we can't like tie one arm behind our backs. And
Yeah.
because you do have a responsibility to the shareholders. Like that's one thing that happened, I think, in the 80s, because I did some research on this and I always find it interesting. It's kind of sick what happened, at least in my opinion. Basically, CEOs used to see themselves as like shepherds for like their employees, like you got to take care of your employees, this and that. And what happened was uh, basically a lot of these like investment banks would like go in and they go, oh, if we make this small change by like giving them a shittier healthcare plan, we can gain 10%, which will send the stock up like 15 or something like that, because it'll beat. And so they'd invest enough so that they could bring about these changes, get on a board, fire the CEO
Mhm.
and make their changes, and then they'd make a boatload. And to stay literally competitive, CEOs now have to basically do that, or someone will come in and take over, kick them out. And it's so they have to, that's one thing that's not understood by a lot of people. It's not like, yeah, there are some bad people, there's bad people in every job, but not every CEO is like keeping payload just to screw the workers. They're doing it because if they don't, they're going to get kicked out, someone else will. And so I do see like basically an unsustainable cycle in that, to be honest with you. And that's also why like small to medium sized businesses like pre IPO are so much better to work at. Like if
Mhm.
you ever see like these startups and stuff like that, it's like, oh, great to work there. Well, it's because it's all private equity, it's not public.
Yeah.
And on average, they have better healthcare, they take better care of their workers. And it's been proven that by doing that, in some cases, you can actually deliver more value. But at the same time, humans are lazy, and it's a lot easier to do the easy thing and just go, we're going to take the shitty health plan, except for
Mhm.
me, because I'm CEO, I got to lead. And we're going to deliver more to the shareholders. But when your employees can't buy into the shares, like most companies used to be owned by their employees, that's how things were done back then.
Mhm.
And that got really screwed up with Enron. But that's now changed where people are like, look, I'm trying to make rent and you want me to buy like Nvidia, I think it was like $800 before they split. Like, how do you afford that when you're trying to make rent? you know?
It is, yeah. I think people have lost nuance in a lot of different realms, right? But this is one, I think, where people are just very one side or the other. Like business is bad or business is good, and I think
It's
they're
gray, in my opinion. You know?
yeah, yeah. It just, I think you have to see it as gray, because then you know what needs to change to
Mhm.
bring it to the right spot, right? And so like when I'm with my classmates, I do want to bring up these ethical issues. I think we do need, that's like a class that needs to be in every MBA program, needs to be in every
Mhm.
corporate training, is like ethics and morals, because
Mhm.
we could go down this whole rabbit hole. But
Oh yeah.
like,
No, I get what you're saying. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I don't think you have to do anything. Like ultimately, the world is a
It's
very
just going to
massive
keep
place. Well,
evolving
I'm
itself.
yeah, not just that, but I would say like
Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening. Due to editing, we're going to be breaking this interview up into a few segments. So if you enjoyed listening, please stay tuned and have a great day. Bye bye.